So this Shabbos we have a special reading called Parshas Vayikra, that we remember the events of Amalek attacking the Jewish people. And obviously this is instituted as we prepare for Purim, which is about us overcoming Haman, who was a descendant of Amalek. And so the pasuk describes Amalek's attack in the following way: Asher karacha b'derech, that they happened to chance upon us as we left Egypt. The Chazal hone in on that, of Asher karacha b'derech, that they chanced upon us. And we find a similar language regarding Haman. When Haman notices that things begin to take a sour turn in his life, that instead of Achashverosh riding Haman on the horse and so on, Mordechai gets risen to that position of authority and honor. And the pasuk says in the Megillah Esther that he goes home, tells his wife, Kol asher karo, everything that's chancing upon him, all the coincidences of his life. And so Chazal make a point of that, and they explain that what we see from here is that the worldview of Amalek, the essence of Amalek, both the nation and Haman in particular, is one that believes in karo, coincidence. Things are insignificant, life is not really meaningful, life is just one long stream of coincidences, some bigger, some smaller. So that's what the Gemara says. But here's the problem. The problem is that the Megillah Esther tells us that when Haman is trying to figure out which month God would be willing and even being happy, chas v'shalom, with the destruction of the Jewish people, so to determine that, he establishes a lottery. He throws a lottery, a gyro, a pur, and that's why. And it lands on the month of Adar, as we know, and he's happy because that's the month Moshe dies in. So he sees that as Hashem sort of saying, "This is the month to do it." That's why he's very happy, and that's why we call it Purim, Al Shem HaPur, because of the lottery that Haman drew. So here's the question. If there's anything in the world that feels like a coincidence, it's a lottery, right? It's the draw of the luck. And so the one person on earth that's Mr. Coincidence, that believes that everything is a coincidence, nothing's really meaningful and significant, nature is just, a random set of coincidences, why is he taking a girl so seriously? If there's anyone in the world that should believe in the luck of the draw and just say that a girl is meaningless, it's Haman. And yet that same person puts a lot of significance into the girl that he drew. How do you make sense of that? So the answer is very simple. The answer is as follows. Of course Haman and Amalek concede that big decisions God's involved in. Of course. You want to figure out whether the Jewish people should survive or not? Even Haman recognizes and acknowledges that's a big deal. And so certainly God's going to be involved in that. A little bit more personal, the decision of who a person should marry, where a person should live, how much children they have, those are big decisions. Even Amalek and Haman allow you to believe God's providence in those events. The poison of Amalek, the heresy of Amalek is that although God's involved in big decisions, but the small details of life, those are coincidences. So whether the Jewish people survive or not, that's God's business. Certainly He's involved. And the lottery that I draw, says Haman, is significant in God's eyes. But in terms of the fact that Achashverosh is giving honor to Mordechai instead of me, that's a small event. It's insignificant. God's not involved with that. Hashem's involved in who you get married, where you live, the house that you buy, children that you have. Those are big decisions. But when you go to the grocery store and which apple you pick off the shelf, it's a coincidence. It doesn't matter. That's the poison of Amalek. Our victory over Amalek, when we're trying to remind ourselves of what Amalek does and their false assumptions about how the world runs, and our objective is to overcome that. What we have to believe is that the same God that's involved in big decisions is just as much invested in the small details of life. That there's nothing that's a coincidence. Of course, not the big things. It's not, even Haman concedes to that. The chiddush of the Jewish people is that we believe that even the small things God's involved in. That the same God that's involved in the decision of a shidduch is the same God that's involved in the decision of which bottle of water you take out of the fridge. It's just as significant in God's eyes. There's no decision that's greater, and there's no decision that's smaller. That's Amunah. Hashem should help that as we come to Shabbos, we should strengthen ourselves with this and overcome that poison of Amalek and to believe through and through the Amunah Shlema, that Hashem's providence resides over everything, that everything in the world is big, everything in the world is significant. There's nothing that's small, there's nothing that's under the radar. Hashem should help each and every one of us should experience a Shabbos of Menuchas Nefesh, Menuchas Guf, both individually and collectively, see the redemption of our people. Maybe as called Tzedek, Meher, Amen.
Thank you, Hashem.